your release now that you're not playing? I know you quite like your golf.
Yeah, I like my golf. I'm not good at, or not as good as I'd like to be. I like training, to be honest. I mean, it's different, my training now. For me, training mentally is a huge factor. If I don't do anything, I know we joke about doing the cross training, but even just for me, doing a half an hour light session, get a sweat on, get the blood going, I feel so much better. And even if you don't want to, you can get yourself into that type of state, can't you? Where you get a little bit of a rut. And for me, it was important to always try and train a couple. I probably train 3 or 4 times a week, so I'm not going mad with it, but I like to try and do something. So that's a big bit. Yeah, I do like my golf. I'm still trying to work that out at the moment, and I think that's a big thing. And I'll be honest, when I first retired, I found it quite easy to kind of transition. And probably a couple of months ago, I had a bit of a wobble, to be honest, and I was like, "Oh, am I doing the right thing?" And working on that, and it's been tough. And like you said, it's that purpose piece.
Yeah.
Because when you are an athlete, it's your identity and it's your purpose, and it's still trying to work that out. But I speak to players or ex-players who are 5-10 years more retired than myself. And a lot of them bounce around a little bit. A lot of them takes the time, because normally people do this when they leave university.
Yeah.
They have a couple of jobs, they try things for a couple of years. Whereas we're obviously doing it 10, 15 years later when people have mortgages or kids or stuff like that, and families. So
I know you joked a little bit about you looked in the mirror and your weight had gone up, and that was your inspiration to do the London Marathon. Now, a lot of athletes do struggle with life after sport because that lack of routine. How would you say you found that motivation to sort of reinstall those positive habits that you gain from being an athlete? Because I can put my hand up as guilty and say, I did exactly the same thing. Finished snowboarding, went to loads of events, the weight spiked, and you're just not happy. You're not in a happy place because you're not who you once were, and that identity becomes lost.
it is really that. Firstly, I think you have to be able to separate your careers.
Yeah.
For me, going to America, where we played in front of 1,000 people. I lived in San Diego. I was 4 minutes on the beach. It was so different to this.
You can't compare it at all,
exactly.
can you?
And from Wandsworth, where it's pretty busy everywhere. It's built up. There's just a couple of parks and stuff. It was great. It was just great mentally. And look, the rugby didn't go particularly well for me. I dislocated my shoulder numerous times. But as a mental escape, I love the ocean. So for me, the ocean is, I would just go sit there on my own for half an hour, cycle the electric bike down there, have a swim, have a surf, or try and have a surf, and then just come back. Or as a family we go, or with some of our friends. And it was that type of mental release. And I think once you can separate and say, you know what, that chapter of my life was amazing, but unfortunately it's over. And then, of course, you're always going to miss the big occasions like the World Cups and the running out of Twickenham and 80,000 people and the rivalry, and you'll always miss out for the rest of your life, I think.
Yeah.
And this is a big, big thing. People always say, oh, how do you get that fixed? How do you get that fixed? And you can't. And that's the thing. You can have enjoyment, you can have purpose, you can have fulfillment, all that kind of stuff, but it's different.
I think that segregation you mentioned is really important.
Exactly.
Looking forward,
but try not to compare them.
Yeah.
Because nothing's gonna, for me, if you do a deal or you have a big event or whatever it be, it's not gonna be running out in front of 80,000 people cheering, flamethrowers and national anthems and all that. So try not to, but that is obviously a lot easier said than it is done. So I'm getting there. I feel in a pretty good place at the moment. I've got some nice bits going on. But also you need help from people, and you need to reach out to people, again, people who have done it before me. Give yourself a purpose. So for me, whether it's trying to find out the next challenge, the next fitness aspect, what that is. A friend of mine actually messaged me. He goes, oh, I've given myself a challenge to cycle 100 miles before Christmas. Do you want to do it? I've never been on a road bike.
Oh my God,
and I
brilliant.
said, yeah, why not? So I need to go get myself a road bike, and we're going to do that. So that's
nice.
Something like, it's not a big public thing, but a thing behind closed doors, but it gives me something to train for
towards.
And mentally a new challenge.
Take me back to your career as a player, walking out as a captain for the first time in front of 80,000 people. That moment, what are you thinking?
Don't fuck up. No, look, it's amazing to captain your country, to lead them out. especially when you're home. It's brilliant going around the world to hostile environments and stuff. But when you captain at Twickenham, you lead them out 80,000 people raw. And when you sing the national anthem, your family are generally in front of you, so you can have like quite a nice moment, and people see their loved ones or kids and all that kind of stuff. And it's a really touching thing, because as a kid, I grew up and you would see the cameras go down the faces of singing the anthems of the Delalios and Johnsons, and to be in that position is absolutely amazing. But then once the game starts, I always say once the game starts, for that 100 minutes, you get to do what you always dreamt and loved. You get to play the game with no distractions or anything. You get to play the best 15 in your country against the best 15 in your country, against the top sides in the world and the big stadiums. And after that, you know what it's like. There's a camera in your face, you're doing recovery, you're seeing the sponsors, having big dinners with council members and all that kind of stuff. And then you're on to the next one. You're on to the next game, and then it all starts again. You're trying to get yourself fit again, because people don't see how much work there is in the week when you have a slight niggle. If you've won or lost, will influence the week as well. If it's a harder team coming to town, all these type of things. So for that 100 minutes is amazing.
That's the best bit.
That's the best bit ever. It's as simple as that. But it's a roller coaster, and you have an amazing win where you beat big sides, and you have a terrible week where you lose the sides as well. And it's kind of, as an athlete, you try and stay somewhere here in the middle, and you don't get too carried away in the big wins. You don't get too carried away in the losses.
With that captaincy, in those moments of loss, I can imagine there's a huge weight to bring the team back together, to lift them, to look forward. How did you cope with that? Yeah,
it's tough. And look, I think, firstly, I heard the same from Tony Adams, the old Arsenal and England footballer. I sat down with him, and I like going to sit with leaders and stuff and pick their brains. And he said, you can't lead your team until you can lead yourself. So in order to be able to do that, and for me, it's a 24/7 thing. So you've got to make sure yourself, you're in the right frame of mind and position that when you speak to your team, that they actually believe in you. They actually believe in, and you have conviction in what you're saying. Of course, you're going to be hurting and stuff. And there's a time to show that vulnerability as well. And I think when you get to captaincy at that level, because you've got the best players in the country, everyone wants to be there, all that kind of stuff. It's sometimes a bit easier. So it's about kind of making sure that you're all on the same page, you're all on the same wavelength. And again, it's just about a couple of key messages. And it's about honesty. I think at that level, you learn it's more man management and actual training tactics and all that kind of stuff, because you have good people there. So it's understanding, yes, I can shout at this person in front of the team, but the person next to him, I'm going to have a quiet word and an honest word with them. And it's that type of thing, which as a young captain, I probably didn't fully understand. But as you get a bit older, you learn from your mistakes. Was it hard being a young captain in that some of your peers were older and maybe there was that lack of respect and trust because of your age? Yeah, look, I captained Harlequins at the age of 23. That's crazy. That's so young. I know. When I think about it now, it is. And there were guys 10, 15 years older than me, international caps, and there was definitely a bit of that. And I think when I captained them at that age compared to, and then I did it for 4 years then, and then had a bit of a break, and I did it again for a couple of years when I was in my early 30s. And I was very different. Whether that's because as a young captain, maybe I was a little bit insecure with myself, so everything was stick orientated. Every punishment was fitness orientated, penalties for fitness, everything was kind of out there and working that. Whereas when I got a little older, I had much more empathy in my approach, and I understood people, and I was just more confident. I'd been through the ringer. I could share the good and the bad experiences with my teammates. If you had a terrible loss, look, I've been there and done it. We all have at some point in our careers. But when you first go through those things and you're written on the front and back of paper, it's not nice. And again, it's then helping those younger players come through that the other side. And that's when experience really kind of kicks in, I think. There's a real element of a selfless approach within that role. Yeah, I think there has to be. And don't get me wrong, it definitely took a burden out of me, captaincy. And someone said, would I have played a bit more if I hadn't been captain in that time? Possibly mentally, potentially, yeah. But you want to help. You want to help lead the people around you. You feel you're the right person for the job and all that kind of stuff. But captaincy can be, even though you have good lieutenants around you and all that kind of stuff, it can be a lonely place. And it's a 24/7 thing. I wasn't a believer you could dip in and out of it. So I captained Harlequins and England at the same period for a couple of years, which was really tough because you'd be away captain in England, And then you come back and the first day your coach will be, okay, I need you to get back up there and give that energy. And I remember we played Wales in 2013, I think it was. Went down hoping to win a Grand Slam in Cardiff, and we got pumped. We got pumped, and being captain, you step up, you take it. But then Sunday, whatever, we're day off. But on Monday, we're back in the club. So we're back in the club after we just had this huge loss, and we're being torn apart by everyone, and with anything to do with Wales and all that kind of stuff. And it was tough. And I remember I was in the gym, and I was there with Marla, and I was like, what am I doing? I literally just said, look, I've got to go. Just went, I said to the coach, I'll see you tomorrow, and just had to go home. I was just mentally, I wasn't in the right place. I couldn't do it, couldn't bring myself to it. And I think now there's much more respect on the mental side of the game.
Yeah.
And whereas I think when I first, I knew always towards the end, it was so much better, but that whole kind of bravado, toughen up atmosphere, all that kind of stuff has gone away, and we're much more conscious now about how do we help people in that mental state with how we help them get through it.